Hello everyone and welcome. This is Matt, also known as Plandana, here for Players Guild, doing a deck profile for you on the blue purple Crocodile deck that you may have seen used or may yet see used in a future video. So this is a deck I built. It's one of the first decks I actually built because it was one that stood out to me the most as a control player coming over from Magic the Gathering. To me, it seems like a very interesting deck. Your ability to play leaders and play events and draw extra cards with your leader's ability lets you play in a different way that most of the decks in the first format don't. And there was a few key cards that attracted me to it that I'm going to run you through now. So the biggest card that stood out to me is Miss All Sunday. We are running 4 copies of this card. Now, she is just a 1000 power blocker for 3. But she has the great ability that on KO you can return one of your event cards from your trash to your hand as long as you have a Baroque Works type leader. So Crocodile so far is the only leader you can do this with, and having access to the purple makes this, for me, better than the mono blue Crocodile. Missile Sunday is just a really cool card. You can put it down, you can interrupt an attack, and then start returning counters to your hand to play a really defensive strategy. Now, of course, the key part of this deck is events. We need events to let Crocodile draw us cards and for Miss All Sunday to fish back, so we are running quite a few, and I will go through them now. We have 3 copies of Brachio Bomber. This is probably one of the best straight up removal events in the game at the moment, able to KO a 6-cost character or less and add a Don card from your Don deck to active. We're not often going to end up playing this because of the large cost, but when we do, it feels really good, and being able to add the upside of drawing a card with Crocodile if you have a 7th Don spare feels really, really nice. It's just great for dealing with a lot of the bigger threats in the middle of the game. We are also running, probably one of my favourite events, is Love Love Mellow, or Love Love Beam for those that watch the anime. This card is a great counter. It's one of the 2-cost plus 4k counters, but if you have 3 or less cards in your hand, you get to draw a card. This is a huge value as it replaces itself, and with your leader, you can actually go up a card in hand while using this counter, which is just great for swinging the game back. If you can get yourself down to 4 cards in hand, play Love Love Beam, you get to draw 2 cards. Really, really good effect, and you can keep fishing it back with Miss All Sunday to draw more cards and make sure you never run out of answers to what your opponent's doing. Then we have probably the best counter in the game at the moment, which is Blast Breath, a 1-cost plus 4000 power. Yes, you have to -1 Dom, but it's easily worth the cost. It's great in this deck where we're nearly always wanting to invest a Don into attaching to our leader and then using our other Don cards to play out characters and threats. It's useful to be able to sit at 1 and still have a pretty solid defense up. Speaking of 1-cost counters, we're also running Desert Spada. This is a very powerful one as well. While it only adds 2000 power, it does let you look at the top 3 cards of your deck and put them to the top or bottom in any order, which is a very nice bit of card selection, letting you filter through your deck, fix your next few draws, or just put cards you really don't want to the bottom of your deck. It also has a very good trigger effect, allowing you to draw 1 and trash 1, so you can get some good card advantage of it coming out of your life. For guard advantage as well, we also have Lead Performer Disaster. Now, originally I was running 4 of these, but I haven't been too impressed with its performance, so I've cut down to 2 now. We are able to draw a card and add a Don card from our Don deck to the cost area. Doesn't seem the best, having played it for a little while now. It's great as a trigger effect out of life. You get a free draw and an extra Don card, which you can then use to play events to counter attacks that turn. But overall, it's still fine, and I think because we're playing around an event theme and trying to draw extra cards, it does still have a place here, and we can get some decent value off of it. We're also running 2 copies of Crescent Cutlass, which works with Crocodile 7 Warlords of the Sea type. This allows us to return a cost 5 or less character to the owner's hand. This, I find, is particularly useful against the red matchups where you meet a lot of rush characters, especially the 5-cost Luffy that you can't block and has quite large power. Able to put that straight back into your opponent's hand after they've invested Don is very nice. You can also use it on your own characters as well, which is quite good with some on-play effects we have. And the last event I'm running is Overheat. This is another 2-cost plus 4k counter that then returns an active character with a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand. The returning character is nowhere near as powerful as Crescent Cutlass, but this is a nice cheap event that includes a counter power boost. And it's also quite good at returning some of your own cards to get good effects off of them, specifically Mr. 3. Mr. 3 is a very nice card that, again, only works with the Baroque Works style decks. This card lets you choose one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less and stun them, meaning they can't attack during the opponent's next turn. Being able to loop these with Overheat and then using Miss All Sunday to keep putting Overheat back into your hand provides some really significant advantage in the game. Lets you slow your opponent down while you continue to go through Don cards. Realistically, we're trying to out-advantage our opponent here because we're able to keep replacing our events. We want our opponent to keep burning the cards from their hand until we stay ahead and can close out the game. Another utility card we're running is Good Old Jack, which I think you will find in most decks that run purple. This card is just huge for getting ahead in the game, allowing you to trash a card from your hand to get an active Don. We've got plenty of cards to trash. We're going to be drawing a lot, so that's not really a cost for us. And it gets you 1 Don ahead, so half a turn ahead on your Don step. And it makes it active as well, which is great for the events we might want to play afterwards. Probably one of the best utility cards in this deck, though, is Don Quixote do Flamingo, who I'm running at a full 4 copies. This card is not only a 4,000 power blocker, but on play lets us look at the top 5 cards of our deck and rearrange them either to the top or bottom. It's a really good effect. I'm not actually running Perona in this list because I was quite tight on space. I think Don Doflamingo is just a little bit better in that role, mainly for the fact that after you play him, he sits around and soaks up another attack on the defense. Speaking of good blockers, we are also running 3 copies of the starter deck Crocodile. This is a 6,000 power blocker, which is always very useful for cutting down how many counters you need to use from your hand. But as well, he has Don ×1 on block, place a character with a cost of 2 or less to the bottom of the owner's deck. This is great for dealing with some of those annoying 1-drops, such as Namis or Momonosuke's, but can also get rid of some of the cheap blockers your opponent might be trying to put down on their turns. It's just a nice way to defend yourself while also potentially gaining board advantage. We are also running 2 copies of the 6-cost King here. Pretty straightforward card. You Dom -1 on play to KO a 4 or less character. It's just very, very good. You're able to put a 7k body in and get a 2-for-1 for taking out one of your opponents. And it's just a good attacker after that. To finish the game off, we have a few top-end cards. I am running 3 copies of Kaido. Now, sadly, we can't run the 10-cost Kaido to wipe the board because our leader is not Animal Kingdom Pirates type. But this Kaido doesn't care about typings. We're able to simply Dom -5, KO a 6 or less character, and it gains Rush. A big 10,000 attacker that will deal with a lot of the major threats in the game. Really, really good card to have around. Instead of running the full 4 copies of Kaido, I do have 1 copy of Dracula Mihawk. Strictly not as good as Kaido in my opinion. He has 1,000 less power and doesn't gain Rush, though not minusing your Don is nice if you want to follow up with a Kaido on the next turn. However, he hits 7 or less characters, which is very useful in some situations, such as the Blocker Kid. There are a few cards that sit at 7 cost that are annoying to deal with. Kaido can't get rid of them. Mihawk is just in there as a way to deal with that. And the last card we have as a finisher is one I don't play that often, but 3 copies of Gecko Moria. This is a 4-cost 5,000 card that as long as I have 5 or more cards in hand, it will gain double attack. This can make for pretty significant attacks in the game as we're often going to have 5 or more cards. Because we're usually using our Don up, we're not going as wide on board, so playing a more significant threat like Moria, we can pump Don into it, get a good swing, leave 1 on Crocodile, and hold up our counters for the next turn. And the last few cards in the deck, we simply have 3 copies of Sasaki and 2 copies of Alvida. These are mainly just in here because they're plus 2,000 counters, but situationally they have useful abilities as well. Sasaki able to get us some extra Don, or Alvida able to get some early game tempo by trashing excess cards in our hand. But that's the deck list. Really the strategy you're going for here is trying to draw through as many cards as you can, get some powerful pieces in play while controlling the board, and then sit back on your events to out-advantage your opponent. Let them burn all the cards in their hand while yours constantly replace themselves, and slowly squeeze out a victory. Thank you very much for watching.